Hello, welcome back to Virtual Stage India edition. I'm your host Vibhor Tyagi, and today we have a very special guest, Parth Shah, creative supervisor of virtual production at DNEG and a key player in advancing virtual production techniques in India. Parth has worked in major projects like RRR, Kaala Paani, Archies, and many others. Today, we'll dive into the evolving world of virtual production and its impact on the film industry in India. Parth, welcome to the show. You've been instrumental on setting up virtual production in multiple studios and then the groundbreaking technologies in India. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey into virtual production and also your approach of filmmaking?
Sure. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be part of this show as well. Uh, to start about my journey, I started my journey with markerless motion capture, and this was in around 2011. So it was with bunch of iPads, the PlayStation cameras that used to come, so cams and everything, and started testing out on all of those things. I had a sponsorship from Microsoft as well to help with my research, and then this was during my college days. So then I enrolled into, because I had a passion for animation, I enrolled into animation and VFX college where I got noticed by Centroid. Centroid is a motion capture studio in London, and they were the largest motion capture studio in Europe. So I got noticed by them, and I was offered an internship to visit and work at Centroid UK to learn about how the optical side of motion capture works as well. During my internship in UK, I got a great experience in learning how the optical capture works from the best of the best in the industry, also how the post production of an optical data needs to be handled. After that, I got an opportunity to in 2017-18 to come back to India and set up Centroid India as a director of the company as well and a motion capture supervisor. So I came back to India, started setting up Centroid India with Famous Studio in Mahalakshmi, and we had a full performance capture studio up and running. And we also got an Xsense at that point, so we were offering both inertial motion capture and optical motion capture at that time, along with the facial capture as well. We were using Faceware at that time, and in around 2019 is when we started jumping into. So our previous solution was into motion builder. It was mocap to motion builder, and that was all we were offering. In 2017-18 I started jumping into Unreal Engine to see how that can be used for real-time pre-visualization. And around 2019 is when we started diving more and more as the updates came in. We started using the VCam and everything in Unreal Engine, and that 2019 was the time when we started doing real-time compositing against Chroma. So that was the first year we started doing that in India. 2020 was the lockdown, but there were four companies who came together. That was mine, Centroid, then there was Green Drain, there was Cineome, and there was also Liminal. And along with Famous, we all came together. We started a pop-up lab for LED virtual production, and that's how we were jumping into. So that's why exposure to on-set production, virtual production. But then I joined Green Drain and Netflix. That was for 2 years. And that's when we started doing the pre-production, so virtual production in pre-production part as well. So that was largely a previews, techways, and other stuff as well. And now I'm with DNEG, and with DNEG, it's the kind of work that we're doing is from concept content creation using VAT till post phase. So we're doing everything, including mocap and everything. So that's like a complete exposure. Whatever I had, all the experience that I had along the years is now into one company. So that's been my journey in this space so far. Yeah.
You've been involved in incredible projects like RRR and Kaala Paani. How has the virtual production, particularly tools like ICVFX and performance capture, impacted the creative process in these projects?
Right. So, I mean, all the projects that I worked so far had a different use cases of virtual production. So not everyone was using everything. Not so far, I would say, but not everyone was using the entire umbrella of virtual production, and everyone was using it as per the use cases. So for Kaala Paani, we used it largely for TechViz and PreViz, which which saved them a lot of money in production, in building, in defining how much set needs to be built. Same was for Archies as well. For RRR, I was only responsible for the facial capture
Mhm.
motion of that. So we for digitables, all the actors' facial capture performances were done before. So and then replaced on screen with the stunt doubles. That was the place where I stepped in. I do know that RRR also used Simulcam, which I wasn't part of, but then they also used it for a lot of the shots to frame how, on in a jungle, how a leopard is, or a lion, the initial sequence. I think it's a tiger. That's how that's getting chased as well. That using Simulcam, they were able to define that. Now, in terms of the other shows that I was involved in, we used intensely TechWiz, so that was largely useful, in production, I would say.
Mhm.
This helped them save a lot of money in production. Instead of guessing it on the shoot day, everything was predefined, and I think that's a very important step, I think, in the virtual production. And on the production side, I would say Simulcam is the way a lot more helpful, because not every production, uh, again, just one more thing, LED is not meant for every show. If the show requires it, that's when it gets involved. The show that I was involved with had did not have a requirement for LED walls. We did have a LED setup. We did do a lot of demo, but the kind of shows we were involved in, apart from one, which was IC 814, none of the others had a requirement for LED. So it was largely using Simulcam on set to extend to do the set extension on set, and also to see a virtual character on set as well. So that's largely how our use case have been. Mocap used to come here and there. That was like a part and parcel of everything that we were involved in.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's how my interaction has been with IC 814. It was largely for seeing outside the cockpit. Yeah, cockpits. How what needs to be visualized. So it was largely for that. But apart from that thing, it was it was all set extension using Chroma and
Yeah,
Simulcam.
great. This is something which is very intriguing. Most of the people just know that virtual production means shooting on LED. It's not only that, there's much more that you can do with in virtual production. There are multiple streams that you can use, to cater down to your production cost, to cater down to your planning and your execution of your shoot. This is where I believe many people are not yet, educated or known about, this phase of virtual production, because people have seen majorly shoots on LED, and they believe, or they have this mentality, that virtual production, okay, shooting on LED. So that's really amazing that you could explain those things in those order, because it is not only shooting on LED. That's the very key important point that I want to highlight here. Also, moving on to the next thing. So motion capture and performance capture has been an integral part of virtual production. Could you tell us about your experiences in the technologies and how they've enhanced storytelling?
So largely, again, I was fortunate to work and experience and develop tools for optical, inertial, and markerless motion capture. For someone who is not familiar with this,
Hmm.
optical motion capture is something where you have a stage, and there are multiple cameras that's pointing towards a volume that's in the center of your and then you do have performers wearing a tight lycra suit with markers, passive reflective markers on top of them, and the cameras are basically tracking, and it's acting like a satellite where three cameras are looking at one marker, it detects a marker. So that's more like an optical motion capture where where everyone might have seen this in lots of behind the scenes for Avatar and a lot of other movies. There's also another solution called inertial motion capture, which is there are suits like Xens, Rococo, and other suits where you can wear the suit, and you can technically you're not constrained by volume. You can basically go outdoors in jungle anywhere. So it's basically all of this thing is getting tracked by an IME sensors that's been placed across the joints on your body. And this IME sensors are basically, has a magnetometer, accelerometer, and gyroscope. So it tells you where the position of that particular marker is, and that's what it's been used for. There's also markerless motion capture, which has been my, I would say my passion since many years, and I want to see, where it grows in the coming year as well. And a lot of other companies have started jumping into this as well, where it's basically you don't need to wear any markers, but you still need a camera to look at. So you don't need to have any specific suit. It's largely an AI that's doing all of this tracking. It's basically based on the segmentation on your body, and it tracks someone in normal costumes as well.
Oh,
Now,
that's
it's yeah, so you don't need to have any kind of costume. The only challenge in India, is like kind of, when someone wears a sari or something.
yeah.
That's area that's still something no one has cracked, and that's something to look at. But that will be something interesting, when that gets solved as well. Then you are practically, yeah, I mean, competing with a very nice solution out there. Because
And
us, yeah.
sorry, and do we need some specific area to track it, or you can track it anywhere, outside on shoots or any
It's
place?
possible to shoot outdoors as well. I mean, I have seen Move AI, one of the really nice company who is into markerless motion capture, doing it for a football field. So they
Oh,
captured the entire football field, 11 players on each side. They were capturing everything from just one single camera, and which was crazy. I mean, basically that's something worth looking into. I mean, again, there's many other companies. I was using iPiSoft. There was many other tools and software that's available to do markerless motion capture. One of the drawback was real time. Again, MoveAI does that, but it's still only limited to specific hardware. So doing real time markerless motion capture is slightly challenging still, I would say, in a good level. But yeah, so just coming back to motion capture, I would say we have been using it largely for previs, because it helps us cut down a lot of time in animation. So for us, the creating a content, creating an environment or WAD asset is not as time consuming as animating the characters. That's been a very time consuming thing. Using mocap, what we were able to do is cut down that time, because it's a revision. So previous is basically brainstorming the ideas into the scene and see what works, what doesn't work. So this helps, in real time filmmaking, where we have directors and DOP into the volume. The DOP is having a virtual camera walking around the volume, and he had and also the director has performers who are performing as per his guidance. And it was very quick to make a previs out of it. And I think that ended up saving us a huge amount of time in a lot of the shows. The good thing is that, if the data is good, you can, use it for the crowd in VFX as well. Or you can, once your previs is locked, your tech vis is locked, then you can come back on the stage for your other primary capture actions as well.
mm.
But I think what mocap helped in previs was understanding the real timing of the performance. That was quite helpful for us. So I think that's something to definitely, I would recommend always, if it's possible to do, use mocap in your previs, definitely go for it, because it helps a lot over keyframe animation, saving that time. You can use that time for a lot of other things like tech viz and other pre-planning of other things in the shoot as well. So that's something I would 100% recommend always with my space here.
Great. As with the technology, progresses, there's obviously challenges that we see. So my next question is based on that. So what was your biggest hurdle you faced in implementing virtual production, that too in India, and what helped you overcome those challenges?
Right now, when it was, I mean, initially it was largely in mocap. Yeah, it was getting the mocap cameras in. For simulcam, again, it was the technology, I mean, the hardwares and the technology that wasn't available,
Hmm.
that's equipped to do Indian filmmaking. So when I say Indian filmmaking, here we do it in a faster pace. We don't have a special time dedicated on production for any special. All of this is considered under special hardwares on set. So
Mhm.
we don't have a dedicated time that, okay, let's wait for the calibration to be done. Okay, maybe let's wait for, an cam to look at a marker and, zero out the origin. So all of these things are not considered, when we're shooting an Indian production. And this was where we were coming down with challenges, that there were no technology that could be as adaptable to shoot in the Indian film industry as they are now. So that was one of the challenges with technology when it was coming in. Now there are good solutions. We are testing out something called Jet Set, and it's pretty good. I mean, to shoot in an Indian movie in this set, it's doing it quite easily. It's quick to set it up. The idea is to have a zero, as minimum footprint as we can have as a special department, because the shooting should always be about director, actors, and them getting the performance out in camera. It should never be about all of these technologies coming on set. So, that was always my intention, to see any technology that can seamlessly fit into this, which was initially a challenge, but now, there are technologies that's getting better and better to be seamlessly be involved in the filmmaking. In terms of LED, it was largely the hardware and the cost of setting it up always. That was a bigger challenge for us to And in India, I mean, so far whatever we have done, all of us has done, even other studios, is largely in collaboration with someone, so an LED vendor or something, because that's a major investment that you're putting it out there, which gets evolving year by year. There's this, it's evolving so quickly that, by the time you invest and set up something, there's a new technology that's out there,
Yeah,
to
now nowadays you see LEDs coming every 6 months.
exactly, exactly. So it's difficult to first, when you go to a studio owner as well, when we are discussing these plans as well, until the time he's planning out his ROI, that's something new that's come
True.
up. So it's that space that we are in. But it's great, that someone is right now experimenting on something where we are learning from that. So that's great to know. But I would say, yeah, in terms of LED, we are still developing years by years. In terms of mocap, and I would say that's quite established. I would say, I don't think what else you can do more on top of that as compared to what you can do in Samilcam and LED. So that's still developing year by year.
Okay. We'll move on to our next question. So, virtual production seems to be basically, feasible for a bigger production units. How do you see it scaling for smaller projects or independent projects in India? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Now, I would say it's to be honest, it's quite possible to do it, because even like if you see with Epic also, they'll charge you only if you make beyond a certain amount. With 5.4 until 5.3, it's still free to use. So if you're making an animated content, it's free to use till 5.3. You can make an animated content. If you're doing a live action content, you can still use Unreal Engine or other game engine to make your previous tech quiz out of it without any cost. All you need is to know how the software works. And when you go on a physical production, there are still tools and software that's available that lets you do free of things. So like when I'm talking about Jet Set application also, which I was mentioning this right now, it's 8,000 rupees a month for a Simulcam unit, and it all runs on an iPhone. So you just put it on your DSLR or any camera that you're shooting, like an indie filmmaker, you can still do a Simulcam work done on that. In terms of LED, yes, LED is expensive to run it smoothly, but again, like I was mentioning, it's LED is not an answer for all the shot that's required. But yeah, if your shot requires, you can always rent it out or partner with the LED studio itself and shoot that. If it's a miniature shoot, you don't require an LED. So it depends on what kind of shoot exactly we are looking at. And when, I mean, that's pretty much everything. In terms of mocap, like I was mentioning, there are Rococo and other suits, where the data might not be as good as you get in optical, but still there are free solutions out there where you can use it. Like when I was mentioning about Move AI, if I'm not wrong, that's $1 a day is what the app charges you. So it's I mean it's very cheap to be done. So I would say accessibility wise, it's there are tools that's available to everyone. Who's at a indie budget as well. They can also use it, and there's a high end budget as well that can be used. So I would say, in terms of technology at today's time, it's available to everyone. So that's not a limitation anymore.
Great to know. See, that for example, if a smaller studio or a smaller team that wants to make a short film, they want something to be, motion capture, they can go ahead, use move.ai and, get the same amount of information that can, you know, not the same, but a close amount of information
Exactly.
exactly what an optical sensor can give you. Great. We'll move ahead to our next question. So, looking ahead, where do you see virtual production in India? Do you think it will become a standard part of filmmaking, and there are still barriers that needs to be leaped over for adoption of the virtual production into a standard process?
Yeah, yeah. I would say it largely will depend on your shot to shot basis, Certain shots where you do want to see the nature, where you do want to see really beautiful place that's really exists in the world. It's best to shoot it there because then you get the best lighting out there and everything possible. When you have a restriction with your actor, and then so that's when you decide to shoot in studio. Now in studio, that time you'll decide whether to shoot on LED or whether to shoot against chroma. Now the only time I would recommend to go and shoot on an LED is when you have a director or a DP, someone who has locked on a vision, who has locked on, okay, this is what I want, they and this is what I aim for, this is what I'm getting. That's when you go and shoot on LED. That's when it will give you the best value for money. But if you're planning to shoot on LED thinking that this can be changed in post, then technically the amount you're spending on shooting on LED volume plus doing a VFX on top of that, that will make it more expensive to be used. So that time you go ahead and shoot against chroma, and then again, you do have simulcam on set to visualize what's going to be in the background to help you at least frame your shots. But then you do get a freedom of shooting it, slightly changing the camera, slightly changing the position. You still get all of those options as well. Not a lot. You can't move it completely, change the language of the shot, but at least that gives you slight freedom. Like I said, with LED, it just needs to be someone who agrees on, okay, this is what my background is going to be like, this is what I'm imagining it to be. And also your background environment needs to be at that level as well, that it holds up to be the final quality. It can't be, someone doing it, just modeling, texturing, and then putting in the background. That will not hold up to be a feature film quality level. It has to be something that's scanned, something that's photographed, and captured as well. So it needs to be that realistic as well to make it believable on screen. Unless it's a fantasy film, like
Yeah,
what we see
yeah.
in Star Trek or something like that, that's a different thing itself because no one has seen that. But when you're putting it something that someone is familiar with, it's easy to understand. Okay, it's fake. That's the only thing.
So do you still believe it's still time for industry to adapt virtual production as a standard system moving forward?
I would say, see, like to be honest, if I tell you, there are movies that's been doing it for many years. Like when that has been using parts of virtual production. So like photogrammetry has been happening since many years. So it has been picked up in parts. Previous has been happening since many years. So it has been done in parts. If you're talking about only LED, I would say yes. There's still time because there's I wouldn't say time because people can adopt it. It's because the technology can't support what everyone wants. When someone wants to shoot a high speed shot in an LED, that's a limitation. So when someone wants to, do multicam, I mean, there's lots of limitations now. There are availability of studios, the cost of renting a LED stage. All of this makes an expensive thing to shoot for someone who has never shot an LED. For a new filmmaker to go and put him in this spot, it becomes a challenging task for him as well because there's lots of money that's been invested on a shoot day. So that's something that needs to be prepped. And definitely I think there are some projects that's going to come out which will set this benchmark of how to be shot, what needs to be shot in LED. In terms of simulcam, when I speak, it's midway there. I would say, there are solutions which can get your work done now, but yes, there is still a lot of room of improvement to be there to be like a standard camera equipment on set. That I would say that we are still 40-50% still waiting for that to become that it becomes a great solution that like how we use a moon focus on set
Yeah.
for focusing. It's a standard unit. Everyone knows how to set it up for that simulcam to be part of something like that, it'll still require some hardware and software updates to be there. In terms of mocap, I think that's pretty much ready. We there are lots of movies and production that's using it for the final production quality. It just depends that if you have a requirement of that. But I think it's only LED which I'm thinking right now. If you ask me, that has and simulcam, which has a lot of room of improvement. Everything has been tested and done in India, and it's just that visibility wise, not there's
So
not
it's
much
there
enough
in
marketing on that.
bits and pieces. It's
Yeah.
it's been used since quite some time now. It's just being LED and simulcam is something that still needs to be evolved enough for what people need it for.
Correct, correct. And like you were saying, for a lot of people, it's the still they assume the LED is the only thing that's in the virtual production. So when you don't see a lot of LED projects coming out of India, you still feel that virtual production is not in India. But there is other things that's still been happening in India. Simulcam has been used for many years now. I used it in one of the shows in 2019, 2018 as well. So it's been happening since quite few years as well. It's just that the only LED bit, there's not enough shows that has stood out to be the USP is shot on LED wall. That's the only thing. That's why we still feel that it's not there.
So, Parth, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. It's exciting to see the virtual production reshaping the Indian industry and pushing the boundaries of creative storytelling. So, great. Thank you so much, Parth, for
Thank you.
being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Looking forward to meet you again.
Yeah, same here.